basic masks and gowns and so on. And certainly in Michigan, the semiconductor shortages have idled our auto plants as well as other manufacturers, and that means car buyers have a lot fewer options, and we know that that means prices temporarily go up until all of this gets sorted out. And auto workers have been laid off, and that hurts our families and our communities as well. But it's not enough to just build cars in America, although we want to do that certainly. To compete globally, we need to build the parts that go into the automobiles, into everything that we are making. So that's why we are so focused on bringing jobs home and investing in America. We as Senate Democrats have been laser focused on fixing our supply chains, making things in America, and lowering costs for families. And we started with the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, which we passed a few months ago. And I was pleased to lead an effort that has provided specific dollars for the production of our manufacturing semiconductor technologies as part of a broader bill to invest in innovation and technology, and in our infrastructure bill, which was next. And one of the things that I was pleased that is in that particular bill is my Make It in America law to strengthen our Buy American laws that have been on the books a long time but have not been enforced over the years. President Wyden believes strongly in that, the whole administration, and we want to make sure that American tax dollars are going to buy American products and American services. And then now Build Back Better, we, among so many things, and on the tax incentives front and looking at where we go on energy and manufacturing, our leader, Senator Wyden, as chair of finance, has been just so extraordinary on this. But we have resources for supply chain resiliencies, a program at Department of Commerce that's going to monitor supply chains and to improve resiliency, and resources at Health and Human Services to respond to supply chain risks as a result of public health, and we have other resources dealing with congestion at the ports and clean energy investments across the board to deal with supply chain issues on solar and batteries and all of our technologies and advanced materials. So, and as I said before, Senator Wyden's legislation to boost domestic manufacturing of semiconductors by 25% investment tax credit certainly is music to our ears in Michigan, along with the rest of his work. So we're all about moving this economy forward, lowering costs for families, and we know when you've got a global pandemic that shuts the economy down that we're going to have a lot of hiccups here to get it going again. We know that, and we know that folks are seeing less supply, rising prices as a result of it. We are laser focused on bringing those costs down for families, and I'm so pleased that we have such a wonderful partner as Secretary Raimondo. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. So good afternoon, and thank you, Senator, for having me. So as Senator Stabenow said, the President is laser focused on fixing the disruptions in the supply chain, which we believe will also have the effect of lowering prices for consumers. Importantly, there are a number of provisions in the infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better agenda specifically designed to do exactly that. Increase manufacturing in America, create good manufacturing jobs in America, make products in America, and increase supply so we bring down costs for American consumers. The President has long said that it's not enough to just recover from the pandemic. We need to come back more competitive. And many of the investments that he is calling for in the Build Back Better agenda are designed to do just that, improve America's competitiveness. Investments in infrastructure, investments in broadband to make sure every American has broadband. These are vital to American competitiveness, as well as investments that allow women to go back to work. Investments in child care, investments in pre-K, public pre-K. Public pre-K alone will significantly enable millions of women to get back into the workforce. And when they get back into the workforce, you'll see fewer help wanted signs, and you'll see inflation start to come down. These initiatives invest in American competitiveness, American workers, American families, and our American economy. I will also say, we are using every tool in the executive toolbox to do everything we can to work the kinks out of the supply chain and bring down prices. We worked to make sure that the ports were open 24/7. I am leading an initiative in the semiconductor supply chain to increase transparency by getting data from all the producers and consumers. These are all important steps forward. Over the weekend, we announced a historic trade deal with the Europeans to lift the tariffs on steel and aluminum. That goes into effect January 1st. All of that is going to reduce costs for American consumers and help to create jobs in America. So I feel grateful to have such good partners in the Senate who share these goals, making more in America, creating jobs, and securing our national and economic security at the same time. So with that, I will turn it over to Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And I'm running with the right crowd, with Chair Stabenow and Secretary Raimundo. And let me spare you the filibusters and just make a couple of quick comments. The first is Donald Trump didn't even try and work with our allies to isolate China. And in effect, his policies isolated us and hurt American workers and American companies. So along comes Secretary Raimondo and the president and they say, we're going a very different route. We are going to find a way to get much needed, high quality steel and aluminum inputs for our companies and our workers, because we want more American workers in the economic winner's circle. And as the Secretary touched on, this is not some kind of abstract issue. This means here, in a matter of a few weeks, we're going to be in a position to get more of our companies and more of our workers in that economic winner's circle, because, as we've pointed out, it's going to drive down costs. We understand what the challenge is right now. We've got increased demand, we've got supply chain questions, and Secretary Raimondo was willing to do what Donald Trump was not willing to do. She was willing to get with our allies, and together, starting at the beginning of the year, they're going to be able to help us drive down costs and create more high-skill, high-wage jobs. Madam Secretary, so you know, in Oregon, more than 1 out of 4 jobs revolve around international trade. The trade jobs often pay better than do the non-trade jobs, so her work is clearly going to be turbocharging a sector that really needs some help, which is manufacturing with reduced costs for high-quality steel and aluminum inputs. One last point, and then I guess in the parlance of the Senate, I yield to Leader Schumer. This is all, folks, going forward, while at the same time not undercutting labor and environmental standards. This administration, again, the Trump administration gave the old lose-lose. They didn't do in global markets what we needed to create jobs, but by the way, they hurt environmental standards by rolling back so many environmental rules. This takes us to the place that really is good for the American economy, more opportunities to be productive in the private sector as a result of this agreement with the Europeans, and at the same time preserving our labor and environmental standards. That's my idea as chairman of the Finance Committee of a sensible way to approach the trade toolbox, as the Secretary talked about, and I yield to the leader.
Yes, Senator Schumer, thank you for doing
Well, let me
that.
thank our great turbocharged Finance Committee Chair, who has an outstanding toolbox to use, our great head of the DPCC, and our wonderful Commerce Secretary, who's doing a great job. So, and I can hardly think of a better group to make these points than these 3 folks with me. Now, right now, let me just say, we're closer than ever to finalizing and passing legislation to achieve President Biden's Build Back Better agenda. We hope we can do that before Thanksgiving. That's our goal. I'll be blunt. We need to act quickly. We need to act boldly, because the President's agenda is the remedy to the enormous challenges American families and American workers are facing. The Senate passed the United States Innovation and Competition Act to help the United States outcompete other countries and address supply chain issues that are delaying the delivery of vital products to our small businesses and to our families. The House ought to pass USICA now. The Senate also passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill that makes historic investments in our nation's ports. That's going to help alleviate supply chain issues as well. You've all seen the pictures of all the ships lined up outside some of our ports. The bipartisan infrastructure bill also puts in place Buy America requirements to make sure taxpayer money is spent on American-made products, so we're not relying on foreign countries. The House is on the way to passing that, hopefully, by the end of the week. And of course, we're closer than ever to finalizing passing Build Back Better, which will cut taxes and lower costs for American families. How does it do that? A lot of ways. I'll start with child care. The President's plan provides the largest investments ever to help families afford child care services, a back-breaking expense that costs many families more than $10,000 per child. We're also making it easier for parents to afford things like diapers and groceries and utilities by extending the child tax credit that we initiated in the American Rescue Plan. We also reached agreement this week to lower the cost of prescription drugs that seniors and American families pay so much for. That's a big deal, because for the first time ever, Medicare will be able to directly negotiate Part B and Part D, directly reducing the out-of-pocket spending that cripples millions of patients every time they visit a pharmacy or a doctor. Our agreement also caps out-of-pocket spending at $2,000 per year, and both of these folks to my left and right did a great job on helping put that bill together. Build Back Better would also provide limited new initial funding to establish supply chain resilience at the Department of Commerce, to work with the private sector to identify supply chain vulnerabilities and recommend ways to address these issues. And that's a program also included in USICA. USICA provides $52 billion to address our chip supply vulnerability that is paralyzing the automotive industry, parts of the tech industry, and so much else. I know Senator Stabenow cares a lot about this from a Michigan point of view. And thanks to Senator Wyden's leadership, Build Back Better is making key investments in American semiconductor manufacturing. So we need to send USICA, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and Build Back Better to the President's desk. All three take major steps in reducing supply chain problems and backlogs. American families are counting on us to address the challenges they face, and the President's agenda will do just that. Debbie.
Great, thank you. Yes, question.
If I could, many of the solutions to the supply chain problem, as you've identified, are in the infrastructure bill, yet it's your party that's holding up, and has been holding up for weeks, the President's infrastructure agenda. At the same time, the Speaker said again this morning, there will not be a vote on infrastructure without a vote on Build Back Better.
Well, we have a commitment to both bills. I mean, there's no question. We worked really, really hard on the infrastructure bill here in the Senate, and also on the rest of it, which it relates to the supply chains, investing and bringing jobs home, manufacturing, and Build Back Better is ultimately all about costs, lowering people's costs, and that's what we're laser focused on. And I personally am confident we will get both across the finish line. Plus, as Senator Schumer said, the Innovation and Competition Act is critical. That is about the future, not relying on one company in Taiwan for all of the manufacturing semiconductor parts that go into vehicles or other kinds of manufacturing. Looking to the future, national security, 5G, all the things we need to do. We're committed on all of it, and I'm confident we're going to get all of it done.
If I could, a quick follow-up. Yesterday, there was a House Agriculture Committee hearing on this very issue. And several times it was mentioned that we have a shortage in this country of commercial truckers, about 80,000. And until that problem is addressed, Chairman Scott said, there's a very high risk that you will have big supply chain problems with food in this country.
Well, let's face it, we shut down the global supply chain, and then we're trying to start it up again, and we've got manufacturing supply chain issues, food supply, transportation supply chain, labor supply. As people are coming back, how they come back into the workforce, what do they want to do with the rest of their life? Do they want to retire early? Do they want to go back to the same job they had before? So all of these things are, in fact, coming together. There's no question about it, and we're going step by step by step. Build Back Better has workforce investments in it, and I know that the Secretary is laser focused from a commerce standpoint. Would you want to speak about that?
Sure. We are working very hard and seeing success in training more folks to have a commercial driver's license, a CDL. In fact, the administration, I'm working closely with Secretary Buttigieg to do exactly that, and the Department of Labor, train folks to get the CDL quickly so we have more truck drivers. There's also a provision in the bipartisan infrastructure package which will allow people who are 18 and above to get the CDL and drive across state lines. So we have tools in our toolbox, we're working on it, and we're starting to see more folks get the CDL and become truck drivers.
Great, thank you. Yes, sir.
Senator Schumer, when is the last time you spoke to Senator Manchin about the package? What would you
About an hour and a half ago, we had a good meeting.
You can get him on side before Thanksgiving.
Well, we've both agreed that we're going to work diligently over the break and try to come up with a proposal that can be supported by all 50 Democrats.
What's the sticking point in those negotiations?
There are various sticking points.
All right, yes.
Thank you for taking my question. I'm Nao Aoyama, a DC-based correspondent for Japan's newspaper, the Asahi Shimbun. I'd like to pose a question to Secretary Raimondo, if I may, about the Section 230 tariffs on steel and aluminum. On October 31st, Commerce released a statement about ongoing discussions with Japan concerning Section 230 tariffs on steel and aluminum. Do you intend to work on an agreement similar to the one recently concluded between the U.S. and EU with Japan going forward?
Yeah. So yes, we do. As I said, this was a historic trade deal. It goes into effect January 1st. That means steel prices, aluminum prices, will start to go down for American consumers because we're allowing millions of tons of steel in tariff-free. And we do want to work with our allies in Japan to resolve those 232 tariffs as well.
So the similar one with
We'll sit with them. Any deal we cut will have to protect American steel workers, protect American steel industry, and, as I say, we'd like to get rid of the tariffs.
All right, one more question? Yes. Yeah.
Hi, CNBC. Secretary, you mentioned what you're doing with the ports in California, but that's one component of a very, very long supply chain. How are you going to rally the private sector to help in this endeavor?
Yeah, a great question, because, of course, it's the private sector that runs supply chains. So we are working hand in glove with the private sector. Right when the president announced that those ports would be open 24/7, it was a day after he convened the heads of major logistics companies who also said they were adding more shifts, adding more workers. You've started to see that take effect. You're starting to see some of the unclogging. I am working closely with semiconductor companies, the suppliers of semiconductors, and the consumers. Give us your data. Show us where are the chips. Help us, work with you to unstick the bottlenecks. I will say, so far, the private sector in both semiconductors and logistics have been working with us. And we know government can't solve this alone. Business has to step up and do their part, and we're going to continue to ask them to lean in and help.
And how long do
Great.
you think it's gonna take?
I'm sorry?
How long do you imagine this?
We're making progress every day. There's no light switch. If there were, we'd flick it.
Yeah, great, thanks, everybody, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Secretary.
Yes.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Secretary.
I'm so glad you could come, I'm so glad.